Immigration can be frustrating, time-consuming, and expensive. But how does that work when it comes to moving to Poland? I got this question over on Instagram, specifically on how long it takes to get your temporary residence card, and that's exactly what I'm going to talk about in this video. Hello, welcome back to the channel. So when I got my first temporary residence card in Poland back in 2012, it took between 6 to 8 months between my application and actually getting the residence card. When I applied again back in 2016, it took over or approximately like a year and a half between submitting my application and getting my residence card. In 2019, when I submitted to renew my residence card, that took from September 2019 until beginning of 2022. Yes. 2022 to get my residence card. But then when I went to renew my card again in February of 2023, I got my next residence card that very same December. So throughout all of this time living in this country and submitting applications for residence cards, I have learned a thing or two about the immigration process, and it all depends very much on the path that you take to go about getting it. In this video, I'm going to talk about the different paths to getting your temporary residence card, as well as how much it's going to cost you in each of these pathways. So the first one is applying as a student. When I first moved to Poland, I was studying in Warsaw back in 2012, and this is honestly a very straightforward path to getting your residence card. So if you are a student and you are accepted to a Polish university, huzzah for you. This is a very straightforward situation for you. A lot of the time, your university would help you out in telling you which documents you need to submit for your residence card. Again, this took me between 6 to 8 months of applying to actually get my residence card as a student. That said, this was a while back and immigration patterns have changed a little bit, as well as how busy the immigration office is trying to process applications. So that may have changed slightly. It's going to cost you 340 zloty for the application itself in order to submit it. That's the application fee, plus another 100 zloty for the actual physical card or the residence card. So that's a total of 440 zloty in order to apply for the residence card yourself as a student. The second way to go about it is if you are hired by a company here in Poland. Many companies will actually support you in submitting your residence permit application, if not do it for you. I have a lot of friends whose companies, especially banks and things like that, they either have a legal department or they cooperate with a law office who process the residence cards for their employees. This is another straightforward way to go about it if you are hired by a company. Usually, it depends on the company and like what they offer, but a lot of companies don't require you to actually pay for it. Some companies do. It really just depends. The application fee and the actual physical card fee, 440 zloty in total. That's going to be the bare minimum. You'll probably have to pay that. But if you're lucky, your company will facilitate that process for you and you won't really have to pay any of the legal fees involved. I have a lot of friends who have gone about it that way and were hired by a corporation, got their card in that way. In terms of the timeline for that, most people who are doing this through the corporation that they work for tend to get their residence cards within about a year. I have heard stories about people getting it sooner, but I think that was before Poland became kind of like an immigration destination as it has in the last, I want to say 5 years. So it might take a little bit longer. So yeah, if that's your situation, that's fantastic. That was not my situation. After I was a student, I applied independently. And there are two ways, or a couple ways you can go about this, and I'll kind of break that down for you, and which I would recommend. So I believe it was back in, I want to say 2016. So the first way you can do this is to apply independently by mail, by post. And what this means is you go on the website, you look at the requirements, you download the application, you fill it out yourself, and then you send it by mail to the immigration office, to the address that they give you on their website, and then you wait. And basically you wait until they write to you, also by mail, with your biometric appointment. And your biometric appointment is where you show up with any documents that maybe you didn't send with your initial application, and they check that you have all the appropriate documents submitted, but they also take your fingerprints. That can take several months from sending your application by post to getting your appointment by mail and then actually showing up for the appointment. Now, this cost would basically also be the same, 340 for the application, 100 zloty for the card, and then whatever it costs you to mail your application in. But you do pay with your time because there is a huge delay between mailing your application and then getting your appointment. The second way to apply independently is to do so on the Polish immigration website. I believe it's called the Poland Foreigners Portal. This is actually relatively new. When I was first applying back in 2016 independently, this electronic system did not exist. It now does exist, and you can create an account. You would complete the application online, you would attach any of the files that you need, and then you would immediately pick an appointment date so you know when you're going in. And then when you go into the immigration office on your biometric appointment date, you would also bring like the hard physical copies of your application, of all the files that you uploaded into the online system. This will actually speed up your time a little bit more because you will not have that wait time from the mailman coming to get your application, getting it to the immigration office going through all of the mail that they get, and then, setting you up within the system to give you an appointment. If you are gonna do this independently, I would do it through the online system. It's wonderful that that has modernized because it has been archaic for a very long time. Now, the other path for applying for your residence card would be through a lawyer. Now, this is obviously a more expensive path, but I will say it has been like the most preferable path for me. Now, on top of the 340 zlote application fee plus the 100 zlote physical card fee to actually get your card, you will need to pay a lawyer. My latest lawyer fees were 2,000 zlote, which is like about $500 depending on, the exchange rate at any given time. But it can range anywhere from 2,000 to like 5,000 zlote for a lawyer to actually go through this process on your behalf. And you would sign over a power of attorney, and your lawyer will actually collect the information from you, submit the application for you online, get your appointment, tell you when it is, blah, 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 blah. Why do I prefer this? There are a few reasons for this. The first reason, which is super important to know if you're moving to Poland specifically, is the staff at the immigration office often don't or won't speak your native language. They're gonna speak to you in Polish. Now, I moved to this country having already spoken quite a bit of Polish, but this is legal Polish. There's a lot of like legal jargon that's going on at the immigration office when they're asking you for different things and asking you questions and clarifications, and people are speaking quickly. They're not trying to slow down for you or help you out in this process. And so even for someone who spoke upon arriving, it was very challenging to fully understand what was happening when I went in for my appointments. And so if you have a lawyer, you can jump over that hurdle of the language barrier, especially because, like I said, they're not going to speak your language. I mean, it really does depend. I think it is improving over time. I have seen some staff who do speak English or do speak Ukrainian, but again, there's really no guarantee, and sometimes it's just not even a matter of whether they do speak the language, but whether they want to. So yeah, having a lawyer really helps with that, and they just translate everything for you. And you can find lots of lawyers that help with immigration that speak your native language, whether that's Russian or Ukrainian or English or whatever it is. You'll find a lawyer that can help you out. The second reason I would recommend hiring a lawyer is because when you see the application requirements on the website, sometimes it can be really clear and maybe you understood it perfectly, and sometimes it's a little confusing or you don't really know exactly what they mean by this or that. Because remember, either the website has been translated, because I think now a lot of the government websites for foreigners are translated now, but it is still a translation. And so something that means something very specific in Polish can sometimes get lost in translation when it's translated into your language. And so you might submit documents that you think are right or you think are the right thing, and only to find out that you're not and you need a different thing. And that's going to delay your application by quite a few months, because they're going to get your application, see that it's missing, mail you a letter stating what's missing and that you've got to go and mail back to give it to them. So you're adding months on by doing that. And if you hire a lawyer, they know exactly what you need. If there are any changes to the application process, they know exactly what they are, because they're doing this all the time. And so yeah, so you avoid any sort of misunderstandings that might delay your application with a lawyer. The third reason is that you don't need to keep track of everything all the time. You should keep in touch with your lawyer to remind them that you exist and what's going on, but you yourself are not burdened with what's going on with my application. Do I need to reach out? Do I need a reminder? What if I haven't heard anything for a long time? What do I do? That is a lot of mental stress, especially as you're living your life, that you can just offload to your lawyer who handles all of that for you, which is just supremely, supremely helpful and well worth the lawyer fees that are associated, in my opinion. And I've done this numerous ways. I did it through my university, who kind of facilitated that for me. I did it independently, which took forever and was very confusing and bewildering for most of that time. I didn't even know what was happening for most of the time. I was like, what? And then I've done it twice with a lawyer, and having a lawyer just like changes the game in so many ways. So if you have the means to hire a lawyer throughout this process, I would highly recommend it. At the very least, if you have a Polish friend who can come with you to the appointments, that would be super helpful as well. I did have to call on a friend of mine who helped me out at the immigration office. So that's just one thing to think about. So in 2019, why did it take so long for me to get my residence card renewed despite the fact that I was working with a lawyer? I did use a lawyer in 2019 to renew my residence card, but it took from 2019, I think, all the way to the beginning of 2022 before I got my residence card. And there are a couple of reasons for that. And I think one of them is super obvious. So I applied in September of 2019 to get my residence card. And then by March 2020, we all know what happened. The whole world shut down, including immigration office and government offices. And even when they reopened again, it was limited hours and things like that. So that delayed my whole application for like a year. And then the next thing that happened is when I did finally get the decision, I was rejected because according to the document, I did not make enough to support myself, which was just factually untrue. It was written on the paper. So then the lawyer appealed on my behalf saying, hey, this is what it says she earns. She clearly has enough to support herself. There seems to have been an error. And then it was approved. So that also added a whole other year in that process for me. And then I finally got the decision at the end of 2021, and I was able to go pick up my card at the beginning of 2022. And then when I renewed my card in February of 2023, I actually got my residence card by December, which is I think the fastest, aside from that first time when I was at university, that was the fastest I ever got my residence card. What is that, like 10 months or something like that? So yeah, that felt really great. But all that to say is that even with a lawyer, the immigration office can overlook things. They're looking at a lot of text, they can make mistakes. And so you just have to be prepared for that and kind of roll with the punches when you do that. And just know that even, the best laid plans can be disrupted by human error, and you will add time on that. So if you are thinking about applying for your residence card in Poland, you want to factor in not just the fees of the application, but you need to factor in legal fees if you choose to do this with a lawyer. You need to factor in your time, how long it takes to do. Now, to be fair, immigration processes the world over take a very long time anyway. So Poland is not an exception to that. This is just a very frustrating and time-consuming process, no matter where in the world that you are. And it's good to just be ready for it. At the end of the day, Poland is a really wonderful place to live, even though it's been a journey with each and every single temporary residence card that I've applied for. I've had a really wonderful life here throughout that time period. And also it's important to note that if you do apply for a residence card from the territory of Poland, meaning if you're not applying from your home country, but if you're already here and applying, for example, if you're renewing it, or if you're from a visa-free country and you can come here and apply from the country, then you're allowed legally to stay on the territory of Poland until a decision is made. So despite the fact that I've had residence card application processes take over 2 years, I was legally allowed to be on the territory of Poland during that time. It's not like I needed to leave. Now you have to be careful though, because if you do leave, depending on the country you're from, you won't be able to re-enter again without a visa. So if you're from a country that requires a visa to travel to Poland to begin with, or if you're limited by like 90 days, every 180 days, you would have to stay out 3 months before you could re-enter again while you wait for your decision. But if you just like stay here and you're already here, you're perfectly legal to stay in the country whilst this decision is being made. And you will get a little stamp in your passport that says that this person has applied for a residence card on this date. You get that at one of your appointments to the immigration office. They'll put that in your passport. So if anybody ever has any questions, you have documentation that you're legally allowed to be in Poland. But again, that's only true if you are legally already in Poland, right? So you can't like sneak in and then apply. You should already be here by some sort of legal means. Okay, so I hope that answers the question about how long it takes to get a temporary residence permit, as well as some indication of what the fees are to actually apply for your residence card in Poland. If you have any other questions, just feel free to leave them in the comments below, or you can shoot me a message on Instagram or TikTok or wherever it may be, and I'll try and answer it in my next video. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Bye.